Hey there, welcome to our series of Catholic comedians here on Forte Catholic. I hope that you guys enjoyed the first couple of videos with Aaron Weber and Jeremy McClellan. Today's comedian I actually met because he slid into my DMs. Usually that has a negative connotation, but we've now become friends because he slid into the DMs and complimented me. Like, that's all you really need to become my friend. Just say something nice. And it worked out for him because he got to come on the show, and it worked out for me because I got to meet this tremendous comedian named David Studebaker. He shares his story about how he converted from Buddhism to Catholicism, which is a wild story. And we get to kind of share back and forth some of the things that we find funny about Catholicism. It was great. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff that you guys know, and check out our other videos of Catholic comedians with Aaron Weber and Jeremy McClellan. Also in this series that we are doing, and all the other good stuff that we're trying to put out here, like the podcast and some other videos. Hit subscribe. Hope you enjoyed today's video with David Studebaker. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and thank the Lord Jesus, we have dropped Jonathan Blevins off in timeout. Don't worry, he'll be back in like 20 minutes. But he always gets mad at me that I don't let him talk to the guests. But this time, we scheduled this, and John was going to be with us, David, but he had to reschedule. He's currently at Orange Theory working out, which is perfect for what we talked about in the rest of this show. But you have taken his spot, and I could not be more thankful. So David Studebaker is here, and this is one of those things that the reason you're on the show is strange. One, like from my end, I got an Instagram DM, and you were like, "Hey, I'm David, and I'm this comedian who lives who's converted to Catholicism, who lives out in California. I've been on SiriusXM and all this other stuff, a professional comedian, and I heard about you from this person, and I assumed it was my mutual. I assumed we had a mutual friend in Catholic comedian Aaron Weber, and then we got on the call today, and you were like, "No, it was this other person."
That is true. It is the great Luke LaCoy. The great Luke LaCoy. Although I'm sure Aaron contributed somehow in God's greater plan. I'm sure Aaron contributed in some way, but we haven't met.
Well, so yeah, you telling me that it's your friend who's not even Catholic, and we're not even sure how he found me, but it's the reason you're on my show because of an Instagram DM I got at 2 a.m. I love this.
Right? No, it's amazing. It's how 21st century is that?
Right, exactly. So you have been doing this whole comedy thing. Like everybody that's listened to the show for a while knows I love stand-up comedy. I like to attempt comedy and then bring on comedians to show how I'm not as great at it as I think I am. But you've been doing this out in LA, and whenever you introduced yourself to me, I was like, well, I got to go check out this YouTube videos for 2 reasons. One, I love stand-up comedy and I have to watch, and also no crazies allowed on the show. Like, if you were just some insane person, because I mean, for real, David, like, who Instagram DMs at 2 a.m. saying you'd like to come onto a Catholic podcast and radio show? Like, it's just a strange thing to do. So I was like, oh, let's figure this out. And I loved it. So here you are.
I slid in, as the kids say. I slid into the DMs.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, part of it is I have an 18-month-old son. So all my work that I do basically is from like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then with the time difference, it was definitely not the business hours that I slid in.
But it's so funny because it is my business hours, because I too have children and you work at night and that sort of thing. So the thing, whenever you were introducing yourself to me, I was like, one of the things that stuck out to me was like, you're like, "Hey, I'm Catholic. I converted at 18. And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, people don't convert at 18. Like, their parents might convert when, parents are like 25 or 30. The kids are like 1 or 2. And then you're just like, "Oh, I'm Catholic." Or you like convert, you go to like 18 is like going to college when you convert to like partying person, like, and you're like, "No, I converted to Catholicism at 18. So I really want to know what was going on.
Yeah, no, I kind of buck every trend. It would take a book really to explain the entire religious history of my family. It involves Protestant preachers who became atheists and quit, and my dad was in Hinduism in India for a long time. But personally, most of my youth, especially childhood, was in Buddhism. That was kind of the predominant religion. And then my family, when I was 10 or 11, My dad nearly died, and we lost everything. And so that kind of started, they kind of came back to Christianity and then eventually to Catholicism. And it was like in the darkest period of our life that I still was resistant, but I was kind of, I was finding myself feeling better when I would be, go to a church or go to an adoration chapel or have that time. And then the funny thing that happened too, because so there's a cathedral in San Francisco. It's called St. Dominic's, and it's a there's Dominican friars.
No way.
I know, who'd have thought? But it's this like stunning, gorgeous cathedral. It's one of the most beautiful churches in all of the West Coast. And so I walked in, I was like 11. I was like, oh my, like I just went from Buddhism where it's like, okay, sit on a pillow and watch your breath for an hour and stare at the wall. So like there's incense and wine and statues. And I feel like I'm in, 15th century France. And so I was like, this is like Disney. This is like spiritual Disneyland to me. And so it was like the double whammy of, I didn't have any sort of negative connotations. I was kind of a clean slate. And it was such a source of comfort and joy. And so, I mean, like, I genuinely get excited to go to Mass. I find it fun. And I was fortunate to have, my parents are very, very, because we grew up in San Francisco area. So they're very, lovey-dovey, I don't have any of that kind of association of like the parent that's like, you have to do this, and kind of that God association,
right?
Like that, any sort of, forcing or guilt or whatever, that certain Catholics go through. There was none of that for me. So for me, I'm like, yeah, this is great. And not to say it wasn't a bumpy road. I had bumps in the road, but I was doubly weird because I converted to Catholicism at 18. And I started stand-up comedy at 18. I'm now 31, so it's been a long road. But like I did everything weird. It was yeah. So definitely journey.
You might think it's weird, but also like going into comedy in the situation you just shared with me seems very plausible to me.
Yeah, right. No, it's very true.
But also like it's interesting for me because like a lot of like most of the time when we hear converts, it's either from atheism, like we've heard that, like Jen Fulwiler and kind of the big name atheist to Catholic, or I think even more prevalent is like some kind of Protestant non-denominational Christian to Catholic. So when it comes to Mass, a lot of people, like one of the struggles for converts is like, oh, this is a lot more boring. Like Mass is more boring than like Protestant worship services where there's, good music and good preaching, which is rare in Catholic churches. And, like they come here. But I've never heard a convert say Mass was exciting, but I get it because you were just on a pillow staring at a wall. Like it's just a very interesting perspective you have there.
Well, and I should say, not all Masses are exciting. There are like, right. I'm human, there are some where I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long one. But especially the churches that I was introduced to initially. So I got that taste. Like I have a friend who's a cradle Catholic, and I took him to St. Dominic's one time, and he had only gone to a church where they had, the plastic folding chairs, and it was just a blank room basically. And he went there, he's like, and the music was incredible. They have like basically a professional like Gregorian chant choir there. And he's like, man, if it was like this, I'd be going to Mass all the time. So there is that. And it's funny though, even for me, like with Protestant churches, because I went to some Protestant churches prior to becoming Catholic. And I see with a Protestant, like they're fun, and I enjoy them, but I feel like they're like a dinner party where they don't serve dinner. So it's like, I've been invited here, there's nice chatting and people are saying great things and singing, but I'm like, where's the food? when was the meal going to be served? I feel like
more importantly, where's the alcohol?
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, it is definitely a different, a different zone. But again, I'm like a convert and a revert, which is, if we really want to get into it, because I converted at 18 and then I went through kind of a tough period and I kind of floated away. I went to an Episcopal church. It's a very long story, but I had some issues with the church I was going to. It involved a comedy show. It got very, very weird. But then I did come back after that, and it's been years now since I've been back. But I kind of basically did the whole thing. I did the conversion and the reversion, and I checked all the boxes.
You just really wanted a book deal. Those are the only people that get book deals, is conversions and reversions in the Catholic Church. So you got both. You have your bestseller and then the follow-up book.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have to hit something though. I find it kind of interesting because now you have all these different things playing into your life. You have the coming from the Buddhism and then the Catholicism, where I'm just stuck on picturing you in a room on sitting on a sofa or on a pillow, and then I'm just imagining how things must have come full circle during this quarantine, because there was no mass in person anymore. So here you are as a Catholic sitting at home, probably on a pillow or a sofa, staring at the wall that has a television on it, streaming live mass. So
right?
You're essentially doing the same thing at that point.
No, that is true. The other funny thing about COVID right now is I feel like there's a certain
I love comedians. The funny thing about COVID.
We are who we are. With certain Catholics, I feel like there's a certain segment of the Catholic population, and I love the Catholic population, but the one thing they're enjoying about COVID is because at least here, you're not allowed to exchange the peace. I feel like there's certain Catholics where I come from a Protestant and, love you. So for me, exchange the peace, I'm hugging and kissing, doing the whole thing. But sometimes I'll go in even for a handshake and they'll be like, excuse me, do I know you? Back up. Don't look at me. All right. I don't know you. Get away. So I feel like there's some where they're like, yes. No more of this hugging stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny. I've gone back to mass in a church a few times here in the last month or two, and it is kind of fun. Because the sign of peace is always kind of like intermission, right? Where it's just everybody gets to take a break from being quiet and solemn and be like, "What's up?" And now it's so funny. Watching everyone who's 70 and up just chunk the deuce all throughout church. What's up? Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Yeah. And it's so funny because we think of that being a young person's thing, what's up? But they invented it. They were alive in the 70s. They started this whole peace thing.
No, that's so true. That's so true.
It is kind of funny too, because the whole sign of peace thing, it all comes from the scripture about if you have something between, if you and I have something between us where we hate each other and we're sitting next to each other at mass, Jesus is guys, y'all need to work it out before you come up to my altar. Yeah. And what's funny is now people are using the sign of peace as the thing that is getting between people. They're like, how dare you breathe near me? And it's we made it worse. Just get rid of the sign of the peace.
No, it's so true. Yeah, we just blow by it now. In the LA Archdiocese, they don't even they don't even acknowledge it. They just blow by. We don't even try the peace signs anymore.
That's awesome.
I love it. And I will say, to all your listeners, this man is doing a great thing, because it really is important that we be able to laugh in a loving way about Catholicism, because Jesus, I don't know if you've read the book Between Heaven and Mirth, but there's a great argument to be made that a lot of Jesus' sayings and parables, while they were meant to be serious, also would have been hilarious. The camel through the eye of a needle was that would have brought the house down in Palestine at that time. So it's really it's great that that you're doing this.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, you said you've listened to the show a few times, and you didn't get the memo. Complimenting me is illegal on the show.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't think it's an actual rule, but no one ever does. So I think it's a rule now.
I'm a trailblazer. And it should be a rule. And as we saw with my conversion, I zig when others zag. So, it should be a rule.
Well, good. I appreciate that. So I grew up in the church. I've literally been at a church multiple times a week since I was a small baby. It's so funny. I look at the church and there's so many things funny about it. But you kind of have this insiders/outsiders perspective. So what are some of the things that you've seen as this person who was completely outside of the church, sitting on a sofa in your room, to now you're in it, man? What are some of the things that you look at and be like, that's kind of funny?
Yeah, well, the exchange of the peace, as we talked about, that's always the most funny thing to me. I do love, personally, I love homilies. Now, a lot of Catholics don't. They'll find it boring. But to me, the homilies are always hilarious, because especially when a priest tries to tell a joke. That's my favorite thing in all of the Catholic Mass, is when they try to tell a joke, and especially when it's funny but it bombs. And that moment, there's been so many times in Mass where it's my parish is the largest in LA, in the LA Archdiocese. So there'll be like 1,500 people. They'll tell a joke. I'm the only one laughing. And there's like a comedian laugh that you do, where if you're in the back of the room and a comedian tells a joke, a fellow comedian tells a joke, it doesn't do it. There's a laugh, you do it, and it's kind of almost a cackle. It's like a ha, but like you make it known that like you thought that was funny. And so I will often do that, but then I'll realize like, oh, I'm not in a comedy club, I'm in a church. And so then I get like the side eye from people, but I'm like, it was funny. Come on, no one thought that was this guy's doing good material here. Come on, give him some love.
Yeah, what's funny is like what I really hope is that there's a priest here right now, and every time you try to talk about faith, they laugh. That would just be the perfect combination. But like I do the same thing, and what's funny is like like everybody always talks about like the church laughs. Like you just can't stop laughing about something, and like. I'm the same way. Like if the priest says something funny, like I'm usually the only one laughing. And I think part of it is we might be some of the only people paying attention.
Yes.
But I also had this image, like just kind of like comparing your life to like, the homily. What I really think you should do, like your next 5-minute set should be like a parody of a 5-minute homily. Where you go up there and everything is written down and you stare at the paper and just read it off the paper the whole time and like awkwardly reread another sentence. I think it would only work with Catholic audiences, and it would it would take a while to get a laugh, but then it would be hilarious. It's
very Kaufman-esque. I like it. That is something that is interesting, where like there's so many things where like if it's just a Catholic audience, I can do it and it works. It's so hard to do anything that's like inside baseball with Catholicism or even Christianity with comedy club audiences, especially because like usually if you're getting drunk on a Thursday night, like you're not really you're probably not always going to be that tuned up. But yeah, no, that is, I do a few things. I do weave Catholicism and religion in a little bit, but I tend to, my comedy is like, I call it adult clean. So like my stand-up, it's like, I can perform and can be kids there. It's not terrible, but I'm like, generally it's like an adult can come, they can enjoy it, or someone like 13 and older, basic, like PG. I'm a PG-13 movie, right. But it is so.
If they can watch Shrek, they can watch you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like, but it is so funny threading that needle, because there are so many, even with TV, like I used to, when I started comedy, I used to be able to tell jokes about TV shows, because like almost everyone watched like early American Idol stuff or things like that. And now everyone goes to a different, church, or doesn't go, or watches a different show. There's so few things that are really shared. So most of what I do now just kind of has to be like making fun of myself, because, like other than that, it's, people don't even know, like, I don't know. Who's Jerry Seinfeld? I don't know who that is. I don't,
He's just an old man that talks to himself.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end here. We've got just about a minute left. So you've got this book. We didn't even get into the book. We're going to have you back on, talk more about the book. But in 30 seconds, tell me about the book. And then obviously people can go find you on YouTube. I love the videos. People need to go check it out.
Thank you.
How can people find the book and get connected with you?
Yeah, so the book's on Amazon. Basically, it's called Lone Star Lance, and essentially it's kind of everything we've been talking about, but if people were trying to kill me. So it's a comedy thriller that weaves in Catholicism. The main character is he's outside the church. He's a San Francisco playwright and yoga instructor who's forced to move in with his conservative Catholic in-laws in Dallas, Texas. And so it's kind of the worlds colliding, but it's kind of, because I've been an insider and an outsider of the church, I wanted to bring something to audiences that is funny for everyone, that someone outside the church can enjoy it and feel like they're being spoken for, and inside the church, and to show in these times where like everyone's so polarized and angry, that like in this there can be a family who disagrees on things, but they still love each other. They can disagree and coexist, and also fight bad guys. So if you enjoy comedy and mystery, and it's an easy read. So definitely, Amazon.com, and then my website, davidstudebaker.com, Studebaker like the car. And then same thing. My name is my handle on Instagram, and TikTok, actually. TikTok is a
Oh,
whole.
gross.
I was forced by my producer of my show, David Zark, to be on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, Studebaker Comedy is on TikTok.
Well, I love it. I hope I get more 2 a.m. DMs from Catholic comedians because this has been a pleasure. David, thanks so much. I appreciate you being here.
Sorry, can I say one last thing? Thing. In 10 seconds. If this is going on before November 14th, my brother has an organization that benefits foster youth. It's a faith-based organization, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's a fundraiser show that I'll be headlining. So if you want to see an hour-long set for me, raise money for them, go to my website. The info's there. Sorry for going long.
No, it's awesome, man. I appreciate it. God bless. Thank you for being here, guys. I will be right back. We'll let John back in the Zoom call. Don't go anywhere. And that's that. We want to thank David for coming on the show. We loved it. We love our Catholic comedians. I myself am a huge fan of comedy and a huge fan of Catholicism. So when those two things combined, it's so much fun for me. Make sure that you hit subscribe. Check out the rest of the podcast. Check out David's channel as well. All those links are here and in the bio. Thanks for being here. You guys rock, and we'll be back soon.